This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I am joined by my co-host, Joshua Ryan Rusin, the community director of Jake Gino. Josh, how are you doing today, bro?
Gino, doing well, man. Coming off a high. We had a student event last weekend, a money mixer. It was so amazing to be able to hang out with a group of like-minded individuals that are all pushing to better themselves and hit their goals through multifamily. And then also seeing the properties. That hands-on in the field experience is really hard to get from books or podcasts, things like that. Gino, what are you excited about today?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I'm excited about the guest. I've known this guest for a few days, to say the least, right? Number two, to piggyback off of what you said about that event, there is nothing like going on to a property tour, talking to the property managers, diving into the numbers, knowing exactly what a property costs to turn a unit, knowing how to turn a unit, talking about KPIs, really diving in and taking a behind the look curtain. There's nothing like that, Josh. You can go on a YouTube video, you can do whatever, but when you have access to Jake and Gino at the property, when you have access to their entire RAN fam, when you have access to the days after, we're sending out, documents afterwards talking about all the properties, there's nothing like that. So if you want to get into multifamily and if you think that's the best vehicle, that's why you're listening to this. Everyone on listening to this podcast knows that multifamily is the best vehicle. What's the next step? The next step is to start looking and investing in your education. Start looking hard at it because it really propelled us. And, you're going to listen to Jake's story today, and he's going to echo those sentiments because when he started out, he didn't have that education. He took the massive action, but that education piece was lacking. And what ended up happening was—
It hurts!
We created the Jake and Gino platform for that. So, Josh, without further ado, introduction, please.
Yeah, so if you haven't already picked up on it, our guest today is Jake Stenziano, the man who needs no introduction. So welcome to the show, Jake.
Guys, I don't know if this is like when Peyton went to the Broncos or Tom Brady went to the Bucks, but it feels weird being on the other side of the table from Gino right now, so I'm not sure how to handle this. But we're here now. Guys, we kicked ass this weekend, and it's all about the team. It's about getting A players on your team. What an amazing event. Like everyone's hunkered down still from COVID, but we're out there kicking down doors, making it happen, seeing A properties, seeing B properties, seeing C properties, and letting people make a decision for themselves what they want to do and seeing firsthand what it looks like, taking a peek behind the curtain to see what the real deal multifamily looks like. And that's what it's all about because, as you guys alluded to early on, starting a property management company without the proper education hurts. We had septic tanks blow up within our first few weeks. We had bed bugs. We got sued. We just, we took massive action. We figured it out. And we knew that this was a challenging journey. So we documented everything along the way and created the buy right, manage right, finance right structure. And that's why we're here today and able to do all this. So, Gino, I'm across the table from you now, man. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm cautiously optimistic, a little bit scared right now. I see the J-Bird getting jitters over there. So let's do this.
Yeah, so hold on. We got to take that point a little bit further. I mean, guys, what I'm hearing is there's really two ways to learn this business. One is the school of hard knocks. And it sounds like you guys took some lumps there, or two, the school of applied knowledge, right? Learning through your mistakes so you don't have to make those mistakes. And really, I agree with both of you, right? You can cut down time and really make things happen much quicker. So that's a huge
You're missing half the equation, Bird. You can cut the time down, but you actually sacrifice amount of money that you can actually make because that learning curve gets extended. And we know that time is our most valuable asset. So not only are we losing on that time piece, but we could become so much more profitable as well. So that's what really happens when you take the success equation. Education times action will equal your results. When you fail on that education piece, it really snowballs for you.
So Jake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you the questions, and since I know you so well, I can answer them for you too. So if you'd like to go that route,
my feet up, man. I'm on vacation now, right?
We can do that. Or I think let's go back in time and let's discuss your story of why multifamily. And I always ask the students this question that are on our show: what problems were you experiencing before creating Jake and Gino?
So there's two questions there. So why multifamily, and what were the problems in my financial life prior? So let's start with the problems, and it's going to dovetail into the second piece of why multifamily. So coming out of college, I grew up in a very small town, is extremely rural, and there weren't many jobs. A lot of people worked at the central school district. There was a factory called Gunlocks where they made chairs. My family were police officers. They worked for the state police department, and they were kind of pushing me into that. I tried. I failed the psych exam, so that didn't work out too well. So I wasn't fit.
So your mom was right then, all along. She was right about you, bro. That's all I got to say.
I wasn't fit to wear the badge, even though I would have given it my all. So there was that piece to it. So there was a discovery time in my career where I was always a hard worker. I always had multiple jobs, and fortunately, I landed a job at Radio Shack that was 100% commission. This was while I was finishing up a phys ed degree in school. And I had this kind of epiphany moment where I was driving back from my parents' house back to school. And I said to my dad, I'm like, I cannot be a glorified babysitter. I cannot keep going out to these schools when these kids don't want to play sports, when this should be the best part of their day. I'm not going to sit there and try to babysit them. And he said, look, you're excelling in your commission sales job. Let me set you up with someone from Amgen. And this is the key about education, guys. This guy gave me the blueprint, okay? This guy from Amgen, he said, you got to get a year of business-to-business sales. You got to finish a 4-year degree. That will unlock the door to get you into the pharmaceutical world. And at that time in my life, 6-figure salary, company car, I made it, okay? Coming from a small town, like I was done, I was retired, the world was good. So I did exactly what the mentor said. I followed the blueprint. I did a year of outside sales after Radio Shack, after I graduated, got my degree. I put together something that many people call now, it's our credibility book, but it was sort of a pitch book, he called it at the time. And I put all my successes in it. I documented everything that I did. So when I came to the interview, much similar to multifamily when you're working with brokers or bankers, I was able to display my successes along the way. So I followed everything that my mentor from Amgen was telling me. Fast forward, I was able to get a job with a top 3 pharmaceutical company. Life was good. I was fresh out of college, and I thought I had made it. But then what happens? The world changed. Healthcare reform came down the line, and my company started doing layoffs year after year. What was the impact on the medical community? Doctors were being forced to join these medical practices. Guys that I looked up to that had their autonomy, that had employees, that were really the people that everyone looked up to in the community were being, just taken down and put into these W-2 roles when they were entrepreneurs, essentially. They had their own private practices, all except for one. There was a doctor in New York who was different. And I was trying to understand why he wasn't joining the medical practices when everyone else was, these group practices. And it turned out that he owned real estate. And that allowed him to keep his autonomy. Not only that, this guy was such a huge giver. He gave back to the various causes, whether it was the fire department, whether it was charitable contributions. He was always donating his time. And he was a doctor because he wanted to be, not because he had to be. It was something he was passionate about. But the real estate is really what carried him. So that opened my eyes. And this was, my second mentor. Following that, I was looking around. I was starting to network with Gino at the time. I was networking with his brother. And I aspired for greater things. I didn't want to be in this position where my company was doing layoffs every year. But at the same time, I was sick of the weather in New York. And I was talking to Gino. And at the time, I knew he had property taxes of $25,000, $30,000. And I said, look, I want to get out of this state because they're taxing people to death. I know there's something better out there. And in addition to that, I wanted better weather. So I started an Excel sheet, and I ended up ranking a few places. Northern Florida was on the list, Tennessee. I got my Tennessee swag on today. Ultimately, my wife and I ended up moving to Knoxville. And then my third mentor came into the picture, which was Gino, because right before I left, we had a meeting and I was telling him what I was going to do. And we started looking at deals there. I was already turned on to real estate, by my doctor friend. And Gino had been getting real estate education. And at that point, he said, hey, when you get down there, these asset prices look interesting. Let's go and look at a few deals when you get down there. We'll see what happens. At that point, those are the kind of conversations you have. You're like, this is never going anywhere. I mean, we'll have the conversation. It'll be fun. But, within 2 years, I think it took us from that point, we knocked our first deal out.
So what problems are you having, Jake and Gino, before you joined and slash created that Jake and Gino community? What were those problems in real estate that you had?
Yeah, I think, and that's what I want to stress on a little bit, even before those problems. So the personal issues were, I was in a position where there was at any moment I could have got the axe. They were literally telling us once a year to go home, sit by the phones, and we'll let you know if you have a job or not. In addition to that, I'm a very challenging employee to manage. And I would go to these large company retreats, and they would be, having these kind of rah-rah sessions, and I'd say, "Wait, we can do it like this." And I always thought that's when I was going to get axed at one of those meetings, because I was presenting ideas. I was kind of thinking outside the box, and they didn't like it. They wanted this kind of, pick up your lunchbox, go into work every day, punch a clock, do exactly what we tell you, and leave. They didn't want the creativity, and I had, sometimes just too much energy for these meetings, and I always thought I was going to get in trouble. So I was kind of like this misfit amongst the group, but they kept me on because my numbers were good. So that was this kind of internal struggle that I always had, where I didn't have control over my life. I thought at any minute I might be done because I'm kind of this rogue misfit, but they keep me on because my numbers are good. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a big struggle that I had at the time. But fortunately, they kept me on because the numbers were good. From there, it was, I want to control the process. I want to understand what's going on. And I'm, if you look at, from a personality test, I'm a D. What are the tests we take, guys? What are they called? The
Disc assessment.
the disc assessment. So I'm a hard D, and so I'm kind of skeptical about people. It takes a while to build trust with me, and so I wanted to build that whole machine up from the ground up, so I didn't think people were ripping me off for paint, this, that, and the other thing. And so we kind of just jumped in, with both feet, and said, we're going to start managing this 25 unit from the ground up, and we're going to figure this out.
So what I like, Jake, I need to make an observation. Most of the people listening to this podcast are going through your journey, and they're entrepreneurs. If you look at the jobs that you had, whether it was in the medical field, whether they're doctors, they're typically not entrepreneurs, they're employees. And I think that's one of the reasons why we created the Jake and Gino community. It's for the entrepreneurs, because ultimately multifamily is a business, right? It's people, it's systems, and it's culture. And it's creating that and starting to buy assets that will provide generational wealth, that will provide a lifestyle, that will provide cash flow, and will provide a scalable business. So I can come down to your house for a week and we can hang out and spend half a day working and half a day doing what we want to go do. So that's the important thing, everybody out there. I know everyone listening to this is aspiring to be an entrepreneur or is already in the entrepreneurial space, and they're figuring out, okay, let me create another source of revenue. And I think multifamily is an amazing vehicle to do that.
Can I touch on that for a second, Gino?
Yeah, of course you can.
There's not a ton. Okay, if you go back, in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, there was a lot of these little businesses that you could do. For example, your restaurant, and there's still opportunities out there in restaurants, hopefully post-COVID and things like that. But people could start a business, whether it was a brick and mortar retail shop, whatever the case may be, and be an entrepreneur, maybe have one or two shops, one or two stores, maybe a small manufacturing company, and do really well for themselves. Maybe make a couple, $100,000 a year, and live a good quality life as a small entrepreneur. What we see with the Amazon effect, with tech, with outsourcing all the manufacturing in the company, it's harder and harder to be the small entrepreneur in America these days. And I think multifamily is so interesting because it's still a safe haven for folks that want to, get in and start an entrepreneurial venture, be very profitable, maybe do 500 units, maybe do 1,000, but still have that really nice life, that nice income. And I think, there's fewer than there used to be. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about multifamily. And it allows for anyone in any state to get into it. And you don't have to do the traditional franchise. We talk about our franchisable model that we pass on to people. There's no fees after you start a relationship with us. But if you go to say, I want to start a McDonald's franchise, it's not as good because they nickel and dime you with the fees along the way. That's the interesting thing about getting into multifamily right now.
So Jake, walk us through that first deal real quick. Just give us a high level overview, but I want to know your feelings. What were you feeling the night before? What were you feeling?
I was scared to death.
Yeah. What were you feeling?
In the first 3 or 4 deals, I was still scared to death. That kind of before you take over was just frightening, because here's the deal. We put everything on the line. We blew up our 401ks. We ended up taking out HELOCs on our homes. We went all in on this, and we took a chance, and it paid off. But when you're borrowing money from your grandparents, your wife has bonds that you're cashing in, anything that you can do to get equity in these properties, you better perform Otherwise, you're going to be in big trouble. Now, I'm not out there recommending people to go all in as hard as Gino and I did, but I do think because we had such commitment early on, it paid off down the road. So that was huge. But, I still think even we closed a 52 unit earlier this year. The night before we go to the closing table, I'm, cross-checking the numbers 54 times to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Because look, there's real money on the line, and you want to make sure you're nailing this stuff. So, even to this day, it's not as nerve-wracking as it used to be. But the night before, definitely sometimes it keeps you up. But I was willing to take a chance because what was the alternative? I could go back and I knew eventually my number was going to get called, and then I'd have to, start from scratch again. So I think the choice was easy, and we only live once. And that's the hard thing, to really grasp, is that if you don't take a chance on this stuff, you only get one shot at life. 10 years goes by in the blink of an eye. So you got to get started, and you have to go. So that was the saving grace, is that I'm an action taker, and I had a great partner like Gino to back me up on the education side. But man, it's scary getting into that first deal. But if you had never ever take a chance, you guys are never going to grow in life.
So clarity equals commitment. That's why when you committed, you were clear on your goals. You were clear on the fact that you were stuck in your life. You were clear on the fact that you didn't know if tomorrow you're getting that call. And then all of a sudden you need to start again from a 6-figure income to like on unemployment. Can you give the listeners an idea of some steps that they need to take to get into that first deal?
Yeah, I think you got to be a responsibility junkie too, because I keep going back to the mindset piece of this, but I am fully committed to taking care of my family and doing whatever it takes. So you have to be a responsibility junkie. And that means in your personal life and also in your business life. So when it came down to that first deal, look, we did a little too much. We joke about the I'm a mentality. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do everything. There's responsibility junkie, and then there's not being smart. So we did a little bit too much of the work. I always joke about the orange lawnmower that we bought. I tried mowing the lawns. I was helping the guys put in tile. We were doing everything, but it wasn't efficient. And that's that learning curve that slowed us down so much in the beginning. So I think one of the keys is, look, being hands-on is one thing to understand the process, but then you have to start to systemize and scale. And that was the biggest aha moment that took us from kind of a floundering company to, we're working on a well-oiled machine. We're not there yet. And I think it was that time that I spent with Jim Clayton that really opened my eyes, because we were sitting at lunch. We were at Aubrey's in Knoxville. And I was, kind of in the same mode. I was like, Jim, we were getting a loan from him at the time. I said, regardless, of what happens with the employees on this property, I'm there. I'll take the checks to the bank. If we got to turn a unit, whatever the case may be, I will insert myself. And he said, Jake, I love your passion, but ultimately that's not going to grow your business. And I was kind of floored, because I was like, what, if I can't do it, who else is going to do it? And so that's when we started doing our EOS training and our scaling up. And he really opened my eyes to how important people, systems, and culture are. And that's what Gino alluded to before. That's a real business. Trying to be a macho man and do everything possible for the work on the property is just foolish. You need to work on the people, systems, and culture. And that's the true heart and soul of our organization now. And I think it even came through this weekend when, so many of the people in the Jake and Gino community were like, I'm so impressed with the quality of folks that I'm meeting this week and that I'm networking with, that I'm creating business ventures with. And then on the side of our team, when they're looking at our property managers and they're saying, now I understand why this works so well, because we work hard on getting the right people aboard, whether it's the Jake and Gino, education, or it's, Rand Property Management.
So Jake, how would you tell students to go about looking for an education program or a mentor? Because we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 18 months to 2 years. And I've spent more than that over the last 10 years of my career with life coaching, with various other forms of coaching. What would you say to them? I mean, how do I start? How do I select one? Where do I go?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me whenever I'm buying something, it's fulfillment. What is the fulfillment going to look like, and is it a good fit? Because one of the things that's very interesting, and I'm going to give a shameless plug about us, is that not everyone's a good fit. Not everyone is basically accepted to come on board through the application process, because there's just certain situations where we're very, wholesome, family-oriented, hardworking, blue-collar work ethic community that's vertically integrated. And, some of the people out there may be more attracted to, someone sitting on a jet or, a Lambo, and that's not our persona. So I think it's understanding, is it a good fit? Do these people align with your values? I think that's one of the most important things. And then really understanding and vetting the fulfillment process, because I think that's where so many people have been let down in the education space, is that they maybe come out flashy and they got the Lambo and this, that, and the other thing, but can they actually fulfill? And I pride myself, and I know Gino and Josh, you do as well, is we pride ourselves on fulfillment, and we are so proud of our values. So if it's a fit, great. And if not, that's okay too. I think that's the most important thing. And the same thing for the consumer as well. If you're going to partner with someone, make sure that those goals and those values are in alignment.
I love that, Jake. What Jake is referring to, everyone, is when you talk about fulfillment, it's great. You can go out and you can analyze a deal. If you're looking just to syndicate deals, maybe there's someone out there that's just teaching the syndication model. But here at Jake and Gino, we really teach the buy right, the manage right, the finance right, and we've extended that to the syndicate right. And now we're going to be launching a youth academy on top of that. So really take a look at your mentors and see if they're doing, because, as Josh likes to say, success leaves clues. There's people out there that are doing it. And if you're going to go follow someone, make sure they're actively doing it, right? If education is their number one source of income, then maybe that's not the top mentor. If they're out there buying the deals.
Say that again, because I think, Gino, you went very quick with that. And I think you should elaborate on that a little
Well,
bit.
I mean, if you're out there and you're looking at an education company and they haven't done a deal in 3 years, or if that's their main source of focus and revenue, that may not be a great fit for you, because the market has changed so much in the last 3 years. We're constantly learning and we're constantly evolving our systems and teaching those systems to our students. And the market is not stagnant. The market is constantly evolving. And unfortunately, over the last 50 years, you need to think differently. You need to think smarter, and you need to grow, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And that's what happened with me at the restaurant back in 2008. Restaurant was changing. All of a sudden, you have apps online where you can start ordering online. You have Instagram. You have social media. You have these sites such as Grubhub. And if I'm not growing, and I'm just going to end up dying. And for me, Jake, the whole big thing is, if it makes you money, what?
I guess it costs you nothing.
Right? So that's what education is all about. It's really an investment in yourself. You're investing in yourself. And Jake and I have been able to invest in ourselves over the last 2 to 3 years. And we've seen an explosion with the culture of our company. We had no core values. We didn't know what core values were. Jake despised core values. And we should touch upon that.
Well, I thought it was corporate jargon. And then I realized, wow, this is how we hire and fire people. That was the epiphany moment, because I was so turned off from the corporate culture that the company I was with, that it became early on, before healthcare reform and before the regulations started browbeating everyone. It was a great organization. If you would ask me like back then about the core values, I've been like, it's great. But then all of a sudden it was the browbeating, the regulations and the cutbacks and the pullbacks, and, just read this script and go in there and then follow. I'm like, this is not living. This is not a company I want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But I was holding on, like many people were, because of you have like the golden handcuffs on, right? This is providing for my family, this is how we eat food every week. And so that's where the struggle came in, and for me the culture eroded with it, and so did the company. So that's why I was so against it, because I was just against everything corporate at that point. But core values are tremendous and super important.
We're going to go to a quick timeout, but I'm going to read off these 3 questions to everybody, and I want everyone to ponder this and really think about it. And I think Jake and I have really discussed this over the last couple of years. Number 1, are you building someone else's dream? It's important. Are you building your dream, or are you building your employer's dream? Number 2, are you paying too much in taxes? We were paying a ton of taxes before. And number 3, have you saved enough for retirement? Bottom line, have you saved enough for retirement? So I want everyone to ponder those 3 questions and ask yourself that questions, and do the hard work and say, be honest with yourself. And that's what led to our clarity, and that's what led to our commitment, answering those questions and saying, you know what, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I need to get to work. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors. Are you looking for ways to improve your life?
Here at Jake and Gino, our mission is to empower students through financial education and the vehicle of multifamily investing.
Yes, Jake. We agree that a person with financial intelligence can change the world for the better.
We've created our proprietary 3-step framework: buy right, manage right, and finance right. that we teach to our community. This framework, along with education, our one-on-one mentorship, on-site boot camps, and the amazing community, has propelled our students to massive success.
We've all been there. We've had so many students that have been able to shift their mindset, overcome limiting beliefs, and set a clear path to achieve their goals. Whether you're currently fixing and flipping, wholesaling, or buying single-family rentals, and you know that multifamily investing is the right vehicle for you, I encourage you to visit jakengino.com/apply to schedule your complimentary consultation with our team. And I want to let you know this isn't a high-pressure sales call. It's really just a discovery call to get to know each other better and see if we're a good fit for working together. And if for any reason we're not a good fit, our team has tons of resources we will share with you to help you along your journey.
If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels, go to jakengino.com/apply and schedule your call now.
Okay, Jake, I got some quick short answer questions for you. But before we dive into those, I want to elaborate just a little bit more on your story. So, okay, you buy your first couple deals, you're focused on scaling up. Give us the next couple, pages in the book.
Yeah, it's interesting because we got the first few deals done, and it was I think going back to 2015, and we had about 200 and some odd units, and the real explosion came from this. I guess it would have been our fourth deal. We basically doubled. We more than doubled in size, and here's the crazy thing about multifamily is that we've done owner finance deals. And I want to throw this out there as a tip to everyone. When you're doing an owner finance deal, you don't lead with owner financing. You don't lead with, hey, can you hold some paper for me? Because the person is going to think you're unqualified. You underwrite the deal completely. You share your numbers with the sellers, and then you have a dialogue. So that's what we did on this 281 unit deal. This is the deal that there's been a lot of deals that have changed my life and Gino's life, our third deal especially. But this deal was tremendous because essentially we came back, we said, look, we're short from where you are. This is why. And then all of a sudden the sellers started talking about owner financing. And, I remember calling Gino and I think he dropped the phone when I said, there's a chance that we could get a fully owner financed 281 unit deal, literally coming to the table with no money. Essentially what happened was they financed 20% of our down payment. We bought it with Community Bank, and we more than doubled overnight. And at the closing table, we actually got money back from the prorated rents. The title company is looking at me saying, I just don't really understand what's going on right now. You just bought a 281 unit complex and they paid you to do it. And then they gave you the keys.
Yeah. So the important thing about that, everybody, what Jake was doing with that, what we were attempting to do, we were using the SPY technique, which we teach at Jake and Gino. The SPY technique is really the seller, which is for S, the P is the property, and the Y is you. We didn't lead with seller financing, but we knew their motivation. We knew that they were mom and pops. We knew that there were 5 sisters involved. We knew that all the rents weren't going in. We knew that the seller was just motivated and wanted to sell the property. He had tried to get rid of it. He had to take the property back. It was just a drain on his life. And he just wanted to retire, buy a Porsche, and drive to California. That's all he wanted to do. Now, we had the experience, right? And Jake had referred Jim Clayton. Jim Clayton sold his property, his business to Warren Buffett. So Jim Clayton had a bank. So having all that background and having the ability to find the community bank that wanted to work with us and having the credibility book allowed us to do that, but really not leading with it. I remember specifically the numbers. They were asking $12.6 million. We sent over the underwriting to them. And we said, there's no way we can do it for that number. Not even close. They came back with the offer at $11 million. Owner financing. So we didn't push it. And when everyone's doing an owner finance deal, it's only one tool in the toolbox. Don't look at every deal as owner financing. Some deals may not work. You need a motivated seller. You need a quote unquote value add, AKA distressed property, right? It's hard to finance. What this property was, it was a scattered site. So a lot of big institutions didn't want to deal with it. It was too small for the mom and pop. So it was a perfect storm for the deal. And it took months and months and months. Jake was wearing out the broker. I remember him the night before having to get together with the seller and huddle together. It was a large deal. And most people didn't understand. They couldn't wrap their minds around. It's one of those deals where everyone says, you can't do it. You can't do it. Well, if you say you can't do it, you can. We just said, how can you do it? You ask yourself better questions, you get better answers. And we kept honestly always asking the sellers better questions, and we were getting better answers, and we were able to formulate our strategy on it. We take the property over day one. They were doing $140,000 in revenue. First month out of the gate, we hit $170,000 in revenue. So we did our work on the front end, and it was just an amazing deal. It was newer build. Some of them were assets were a little bit older.
Now we're knocking on almost 250. We're about 240 in income on the property. Right
I mean,
and
then you have, like you said, it's lucky compressing cap rates. You have demographics playing into the deal. So taking that massive action, but implementing those techniques that we learned through our coaches and through the Jake and Gino community allowed us to really access this deal. It was an amazing deal. It wouldn't have happened in our first or second deal, but it's one of those things where as you're doing the business and as you're learning, it's just the swell that happens, that snowball effect that happens.
Yeah, and just to finalize my answer where I was going with that is, so we learned so much on the buy and the negotiation side, and then we're managing these properties, and then we got into agency debt, and then we started syndicating, and all along the way we're documenting our processes for the education company. So that was really the culmination of how everything came together, is that we've done it all, and then we've documented it as we've gone. And that's where, essentially we are today, is that we've nailed the buy, manage, and finance. And those are the parameters to essentially keep people safe and provide for your investment.
Listen, I love that. All right. So I got another question on the deal. So you bought it for $11 million, owner finance. Have you refied it? What else have you done to that deal?
Yeah, we've done a lot with it. We've provided what I call our blue ocean strategy to it. So when you talk about the management component, I believe in the C and B space for apartments, the biggest lacking need for our folks is good customer service. So we've taken some really good folks. We've done, we trained them up on good customer service. So we provided more for our folks. We divided that deal up into two LLCs. There was 149 unit contiguous. There was 132 unit scattered site. So we put proper, LLC structures in place on it as well. Since that deal also, we've put in rubs. We've done all our value adds to it. In addition to, we've refinanced it. I think the scattered site, we've refinanced it twice, right, Gino? And since doing that, we were able to pay off the seller finance notes for the 20%. So they're free and clear now. And now the deals are on non-recourse agency financing with 30-year terms. And there's secure assets in the portfolio, cash flowing. Believe it or not, we strive for $100 to $150 profit per unit per month. These are doing well over 200, believe it or not. And so it's just it's been a fantastic deal that we're going to hold for a long time to come.
Boom. That's huge. Okay. On to the short answer questions. Jake, what's your favorite book you've ever read and why?
So guys, I beat this to death, so much, but for 100%, I got it right back there above the Marine Knife, Atlas Shrugged. Really, when getting started in the early days, I was reading this book. I've read it 3 times now. I think there was a correlation there. It helped me, think clearly, rationally. The book talks about objectivism and individuality. And I think it helps screw my head on a little straighter. And I think there's no, denying it that, after I read that book, we started, really ramping up the business, and it was just a tremendous read. I challenge everyone out there to read it. I know the G-Dad's halfway through it. He thinks he's living it right now, but it's a phenomenal book.
I don't think I'm living it. I mean, when you read the book, the parallels are pretty scary. Entrepreneurialism and I think wealth creation is under siege. I think it's the haves versus the have-nots, and that's what's going on. And it really shows in the book that if you create value, you're going to become wealthy. If you're sitting around waiting for a handout, that's not going to happen. Jake has already preached a couple times responsibility, and everyone in that book. That's right.
Producer.
And what happens nowadays, it's so easy to become a consumer, right? I mean, it's amazing how easy it is to consume, but you need to produce first before you consume. And that book really taught me that. And it was just about the crony capitalism. It was about the sloppiness, that we could talk about the debt cycle right now and the debt snowball that's going on with the government. We had Harry Dent on our podcast recording yesterday, and he's talking about with all this amount of debt, there's less innovation going on. There's less velocity of money, which really hurts the economy. So we can dive into that. But I think with that book, and it just hit me right now, with all of the debt and all the free handouts that we're getting, there's no innovation. There's less innovation going on. That's what was happening in that book. They were all going bankrupt. They're all taking money from the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs could not reinvest into their business. And that's the problem, right? And it's just a culmination. When I read it, I just get frustrated. I'm like, I could just turn the TV on and watch it instead of reading it. So that's why I haven't finished it yet. So
Yeah, I think the key too is like never forget that the innovations that have happened through capitalism. If you look back 100 years ago, a lot of people were living in very small, shacks or farmers, and the average person's life. You could be, I don't even want to say the average person. You could be a tremendously below average individual in our country in terms of your performance, how much you produce. You could get an average paying job, still have a nice apartment with a television, AC. I'm not saying people should strive for that, but look, you're able to eat, you're able to have a nice, safe, cooled, heated place. If you go back 100 years, that wasn't the case, gang. If you go back 50 years, that's probably not even the case. So the innovations and the quality of life and how long people are living now are a result of these innovations. So I think we just need to, be careful sometimes in society, where we're pointing the finger and realize that we've come a long way and that we should praise these things. So.
Wow, I love it. All right. What about best habit for success?
It's my routine, man. It's the schedule. We joke, but we like to keep it boring. But literally, it's every day, 6 o'clock. I'm at this desk, and my routine starts, and I'm educating myself. I'm getting my meditation on. I'm getting my workouts in. I got my stretch because I'm getting a little older, guys. I get a little social media going. I hit my bike 3 times a week. Fortunately, I live in an area where there's hills around here. But yeah, I mean, that's it. It all kind of kicks off with, that very disciplined structure and just nailing the basics day in and day out. It's not sexy. But I started doing this back in my, my pharma days, and I called it the Yellow Brick Road. And I had, every day I would come prepared. I knew what doctors I was going to see. And now it's the same thing. I know what meetings I'm going to hit. I had this one scheduled for 10 a.m. today. And then I'm off with, I have a meeting with our attorney. I'm off to a meeting, with our accountant. I'm going to meet with Jennifer from our property management end. We're going to take a look at a property today. So it's just bam, 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 nailing that shit. And that disciplined structure is what gets it done. So maybe I'll even throw a fist bump to the Jaybird today in the office. You never know what'll happen. So.
Boom. Consistency is key. Love it. All right. So this episode has been jam-packed with takeaways and golden nuggets. And I want to share a few that stood out to me. And Gino, I know you have a ton to add to it. So Jake, one thing that really stood out when you were talking about the doctor that was able to still be free, he was able to do his profession based on his passion because he knew how to make money work for him. And that financial education is key. Now,
that
another
was the
thing
difference between him and keeping his freedom and becoming a W-2 slave, right? So
yes, agree. Another one is pushing all the chips in, right? I mean, there's so many times that I've seen that pays off, and I'm going to bet on myself every time. And you guys, you got to be all the way committed to make it happen, or else you're going to treat it the first sign of danger. But I definitely think there's a correlation with success with that. The next one is, I mean, you only live once, right? The time's going to pass here. The question is, what are you going to do with it? You're going to keep going into the 9 to 5 and day to day and just kind of existing, or are you going to go for your goals and make it happen? Again, go all in. And then lastly, like you just talked about, consistency is the key. It's not sexy, but it's putting the grind in every day and showing up. And it doesn't happen overnight, but over time it does happen. Gino,
here's the thing. Hold on. That you can't like say enough about that, because so many people will get into multifamily and then they might be in it for 6 months. They've got educated. They didn't get a deal. Oh, it's this pie in the sky. I haven't got my first deal done yet. Guys, it took us nearly 2 years to get that first deal done. I cannot stress this enough. It shouldn't take that long, but I was a little aggressive with the brokers, to say the least. Okay, I will take full responsibility for all of that. You can get a deal done quicker than that, but I'm telling you, hang in there. If this is the life that you want, if you want to create a life of abundance for yourself, plant your flag. Stay in the game until you get it done, because I'm going to tell you right now, that first deal is always the hardest. The second deal gets easier. And there's a weird phenomena in multifamily. We heard this from Jay Scott. And I don't know anyone that's just done one deal. Maybe after they did their first deal, but they either, folks either get into the game and they quit because they're like, oh, it's a pie in the sky. It's not for me. And if you start believing that, you're right. But we don't know anyone that has been in it for the long term that's, got a deal done, and that's been their only deal. People that do one deal realize this is not rocket science, and they start to duplicate and work on the processes. So I'm sorry, Josh, to cut you off, but I can't stress that enough because it's probably the most important thing.
No, that's good. You got to hammer those points home, right? Gino, what do you got to add to this, my friend?
So I think everyone needs to write this down. I want you all to write this down. Done is better than perfect, because we all stress about, oh, did I overpay? Did I do due diligence right? Do I have my team members? You just need to take action. Once you've got educated, you need to take action.
Let it rip, baby.
If you know more than 70% of the process, you know enough. As Colin Powell likes to say, less than 40%, you may be in trouble. But if you know more than 70%, you need to take action, and then you'll continue to learn that, right? We stress, at Jake and Gino especially, and Jake is testament to this, people with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. I mean, Jake was a W-2 employee paying a ton of taxes. 10 years later, he's got over 60 people that he's employing, giving them health insurance. He's changing multiple people's lives, not to mention the students who have, closed over 7,000 units. We've got over 30 students who have quit their jobs and gone into real estate full time.
Not to mention the tens of thousands of kids that we feed for Thanksgiving.
And it just keeps going on, whether you're building a play set, whether we're going to start giving out scholarships for the youth academy, whatever that may be. You need to start working on your financial intelligence. And once that starts, you're going to see that, that real estate and multifamily specifically is the vehicle. And I want everyone
to just a tool, folks.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I love that. No, and I want everyone to go back. If you're building someone else's dream and you're ready to start building your own dream, I want you to, hit up Jaybird. Jaybird, give everyone your email address out there, because I want them to reach out to you. I want them to start the whole process of seeing if we're a good fit to work together. Let's work on your goals. Let's take a second. Josh will start helping you out, working on your goals, giving you a clear vision. And if that entails multifamily and looking at Jake and Gino community, let's take the next step. Are you building someone else's dream? Jaybird, what's your email address?
Josh at jakeandgino.com. And again, I welcome you to reach out. I mean, we were all once in your position, and it started with the decision and the commitment to try, knowing that we're capable of more and doing better. And that's it. That first step is very powerful, and then keep going. And guys, we're there to support you each and every step of the way. So just know that you're not alone in this journey.
And one thing that we really glossed over that we should really discuss just for 10 seconds, Jake and myself, we both had spouses that were fully committed to us, and we really communicated really well. And we discussed that step and those journeys and those goals with our spouses. So if you do reach out to Josh, I would include your significant other. I would include a business partner, because it's really good to get on and really paint the picture. Because I always joke around. My wife was financially free August 30th, 1998, when we got married. That's the day she became financially free. Unfortunately for me, it was a daily grind. So if I'm telling my wife, hey, I want to become financially free, she doesn't know what that looks like, because she already is. But when I said, hey, if we can go to Knoxville, Tennessee for a week and be on vacation and work, and Julia, we can do a coaching call together and help people out, that's a different picture. And all of a sudden you have some energy, you have some clarity, you have confidence, and you have next steps of what to do. So I challenge you, have that conversation with your significant other. See what you want to do, because I will challenge you. If you're not building your dream, you're going to look back at it, like Jake said, 10 years later, and you're going to say, what happened to these 10 years? You don't want to live that life. I was living that life. I ended up asking that question to myself, and I got a much better answer. And I said, you know what? I need to start working on myself.
Yeah, Gino, you're right. We have a choice in life, right? You face the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And, the pain of discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs pounds. So the choice is yours. So
final parting word for myself, and this is a personal thing for me, but multifamily has allowed me to live life on my terms. And that's why it's been so invaluable to me. But I appreciate you guys.
Mr. Stenziano, thank you very much for coming on. Guys, this is a good show. I really enjoyed it. I'm ready to go. My day is just starting right now. I'm pumped.
I think I just started the G-Dad's lawnmower there. That engine's revving.
Yeah, I've got some ideas. So when I get ideas going, I know Josh starts getting a little worried, but it's okay. It's all good stuff. It's all about growth, everybody. Get out there. Once you can grow, once you can start contributing to others, that's the ultimate in life, is the growth and the contribution that you're going to get. So, boys, thanks a lot for a great show, and we'll see you soon, everybody.